Hey everybody, welcome to IT Live. We are live on our Facebook group, AT for VI Professionals, so it's really great to have everybody here. We have a couple of people with us today. Mohammed is going to be looking at the feed here. And then also Kamran, one of our other IT members, is managing the chat. So as we go through this IT Live, if you do have any questions or anything that you want to ask, feel free to put it in the chat. We'll give some time as we go through the content. I'll kind of cue Kamran and say if there's any questions. And really to know that the point of our live sessions is to make sure that you guys can ask questions. So don't be afraid to do that. We're going to start with one question. Of course, as always, we want to see where everybody's from. So feel free to put in the chat where you're from, whether that's in the States, outside of the States, wherever you are. And then I also want to know one of your screen reader barriers. This live stream is called Getting Started with NVDA. So I'm assuming that, up until this point, there's a reason that you haven't gotten started with NVDA or any screen readers. I want to know the reason why that is, right? One of the reasons for that is because we do at IT, we do a lot of talk about instruction of screen readers, right? This is really the first piece of content that we put out about the logistics of how to get started with NVDA. And really, we're trying to make sure that we're addressing these barriers through our content. And if there's anything that we're missing, we want to make sure that we are addressing it. So tell us where you're from. Tell us one barrier that has kind of barred you from starting screen readers in the past. And we'd love to know that in the chat. Again, if you're just joining us, put in the chat where you're from and what is one screen reader pain point or one screen reader barrier, something that has barred you from starting using a screen reader, teaching your students how to use a screen reader, getting your child involved in the screen reader in the past. And as we do that, I'm going to ask for your guys' responses in just a second. So start putting those in the chat. But as you do that, I want to talk a little bit about our January strategy. I'm not sure if you all have seen our new content, our new videos for the new year. The new year is always a great time. We always talk about New Year's resolutions, and we all figure out, I want to start a new hobby, or I want to get healthier, right? And for us as professionals, we usually just kind of then in our personal lives where we have all these New Year's resolutions, and then we go and trudge back into the school buildings and go along with our IEP goals. And I think it's a good time, instead of doing that this year, to think about what can we do halfway through the school year that we haven't been able to succeed with in the first part of the school year. So what is your professional New Year's resolution? And of course, screen readers are one of those things that people really struggle with. And if that's something that you're struggling with, we are putting out all of this content to kind of change your view of screen readers in 2022, of course, right? So that's it. That's our slogan for January, is change your view 2022. And of course, we're going to be saying that a lot in January through our Instagram posts and our Facebook posts and our emails. But it's really a message that can be said throughout the year and into the next year, because as we've seen, screen readers are really difficult. And for our students, when they hear the word JAWS or when they hear the word NVDA, or for you guys as professionals, when you hear the word JAWS or NVDA, a lot of times we think of like, oh, God, not this again, right? And instead of doing that, we want to help you all, to help your students to change their view of screen readers. And instead of seeing it as this big, huge, insurmountable task that we need to learn, seeing it as one of the best tools for access that we have in the year 2022, right? Especially with this global pandemic, especially with all of this virtual learning, students really need to be on screen readers, and we want to help you guys change your view so that we can get them there, right? And that's why really we're doing IT Live. That's why we're doing all of these new posts in January, to help us change our view of screen readers in the year of 2022. This can be a real turning point. Kamran, how are we doing with the chat? Do we have any questions? Do we have people commenting with screen reader barriers? Where are we at?
Yeah, we actually do. So the first comment is from Michael from Phoenix, Arizona. and
Okay.
he says that haven't tried screen readers because it seems overwhelming.
Yeah, we hear that a lot, especially this is something that I do a lot with webinars is I say, what is your screen reader barriers? That word overwhelming, I hear a lot. So thanks for sharing that, Michael. Hopefully we can clear up some of that confusion today.
Another comment is from Roz Hoff. They are
Okay.
from Minnesota, and they say that they don't know where to start.
Yeah, that's a big, huge one, right? Where do I even begin? It's this huge, it's like thinking about like if you didn't know Braille, where would you even start to teach a student Braille? It's just a big, huge, insurmountable task that hopefully we can get a little clarification on that too. Cool, awesome. We'll be
And
checking in. Yeah, go ahead, Kamran. One more.
one more comment from Pam, and they say, I haven't been able to convince my district to get my student a laptop that I can load a screen reader
Uh,
on, so my
yeah.
student can use it in class. They want to use Chromebooks.
Gotcha. And that's a really big one too. A lot of times we don't exist on these islands of if we could do whatever we would be able to, but we have to work with our IT departments. We have to work with our districts, and getting that justification to the higher ups above us is really a really difficult task that hopefully we can give you some tools for that. But really, as a practicing TBI, I'm not going to say that I don't struggle with that as well. So awesome. We'll be checking in with Kamran throughout the chat. If you're just joining us, go ahead and put those screen reader barriers, things that you struggle with getting started with screen readers. And also, if you have any questions or comments throughout, put them in the chat. We'll be checking in with Kamran in the chat soon. And now let's kind of dive into the point of this live stream. What are we going to be covering today? But actually, before we even do that, if you are interested in more content like this, Kamran, if you could put our landing page to sign up for our screen reader tidbits emails for our schedule of events in January, so that you get all of this change your view content, right? So if you are really interested in getting started using a screen reader and where do I start, right? All of that stuff we'll try to address through our January email list. What will happen is every Monday in the month of January, where you get an email in your inbox and it'll show you exactly where we are posting content. So for example, if we're posting a live stream on Facebook, it'll be on there. If we're posting a video on Instagram, that'll be on there. So you can kind of get linked into all of our different pieces of content and where we're kind of putting it all over the place, okay? If you want that, Kamran's gonna throw that in the chat. Yeah, awesome. Let's get started with what are we even doing today? So today, as I kind of alluded to earlier, we do a lot at IT about screen reader instruction, right? How do we teach screen readers? But really, as we were thinking about a piece that we are missing, the piece that we're missing sometimes is logistics, right? Kind of what Pam had said, how do I even get to the point where my student has a screen reader in front of them so that I can teach them? That's a big, huge gap, right? From not knowing anything and not having anything to now I can start screen reader instruction. There's a lot of steps that you have to complete between those two goals. And that's kind of what we're going to be starting with today. The logistics of how to get NVDA on a computer, how to get a screen reader on a computer, kind of the differences. Why are we only talking about NVDA and what's the benefit of that? That's what we're going to be talking about today. Now, the title of this is Getting Started with NVDA. Now, if you don't know about NVDA, NVDA is a free screen reader for Windows PCs. Now, why are we choosing NVDA? Well, because NVDA is a really, really awesome screen reader that not a lot of vision professionals utilize. We all have been taught that JAWS is the best screen reader and we need to teach JAWS. And JAWS is a really great screen reader. There's lots of things that JAWS can do that NVDA can't do. And I don't want to downplay that. But if you're struggling to get a license of JAWS, if your district it won't support it, absolutely keep fighting for it. But in the meantime, why not teach NVDA, right? Now you might be saying to yourself, well, I don't want my student to be confused by two screen readers. Well, guess what? When NVDA was made, they modeled it right off of JAWS. And you'll start to see as you teach your student NVDA, as you teach your student JAWS, that the key commands are like insanely similar. They are so similar. They are not at all different screen readers. They're like very similar. So that's why we're saying getting started with NVDA. In many ways, because of that school district, because we need to make sure that our higher ups agree with us, getting NVDA on a computer is a much easier sell than getting JAWS on a computer because of the money, unfortunately. So that's why we're talking about NVDA. That being said, if you have JAWS questions, throw them in the chat because I have JAWS on my computer. We can certainly talk about JAWS. It's just NVDA is that easier sell. Okay. Now, again, if you're just joining us, questions in the chat, we'll be checking in a second. But let's get started with NVDA. So if you want to know about downloading NVDA, there is a great video we just posted on our Facebook group, on this Facebook group, called Tech Tip Tuesday, downloading and installing NVDA. Watch that video. We go over in detail how to download NVDA on the computer. Now we're going to start from where that video leaves off. So I'm going to share my screen here and make sure I'm sharing my sound. Yep, awesome. And I'm starting from the point of I've downloaded NVDA on this computer, and now I am at the welcome dialog box. This is like the first time you open NVDA, this is what you're going to see. Okay. Right now I have my speech turned off. I'll be turning it on and off throughout so that I can talk. Okay. So let's take a look at this welcome dialog box. First, I'm going to be doing this visually, but then I'll come back and talk about how to navigate these dialog boxes with the keyboard if you are a screen reader user yourself. So there's a couple of things on this dialog box that we want to take a look at. First of all, we have our keyboard layout. Notice how that's set to laptop. If you're on a desktop, you can set it to desktop. If you're on a keyboard or a laptop, you set it to laptop. So I'm on a desktop. I'm going to switch that to desktop. The second thing I want you to look at is take a look at this. Use caps lock as the NVDA modifier key. The NVDA modifier key is a point of real confusion. And if you use JAWS, there's also a JAWS modifier key that works the exact same way. Remember how I said they're so similar. The NVDA or the JAWS modifier key, or I'll start with every screen reader has their own special modifier key. That when I say a modifier key, I mean a key that you're holding down and pressing with another key to make something happen. So for example, Control-C, control is the modifier key, all right? In Alt and D, Alt is the modifier key, right? I'm holding that key down and pressing another key to make that happen. Now, the NVDA modifier key or the JAWS modifier key is a key on the keyboard that, depending on the way you set it, could be either caps lock or it could be insert. So on some versions of NVDA, you can make that NVDA modifier key insert, and on some you can make it caps lock. Now, if you're already lost, if you're like, what is he even talking about? I will go over this in right after this dialog box, so stick with me here. But the thing you want to know is, I want you to check that box. Use caps lock as the NVDA modifier key. You should have that checked, and I'm going to show you why later in this live stream. Okay. The next thing is use NVDA on Windows login. If this is for your student, or if you're a screen reader user yourself, you want to check that, because that means that when you open up your computer and you have to put in your password, that NVDA will automatically be on. Of course, we want that, but if you're a visual user, don't check that, because then when you open up your computer, then NVDA will be on, right? So I'm going to leave that unchecked for my computer, but you can feel free to check that. The next one is show this dialog box when NVDA starts. That's up to you. I never check it, right? So let's go to OK. All right. Now, let's talk more about the NVDA modifier key. The NVDA modifier key, again, it can be caps lock or it can be insert, okay? Now I'm going to show you an example. The way to open up the menus of the NVDA, which is what we're going to be working in a lot today. The way to open up the menu of NVDA, like the settings menu, the preferences menu, all that, is called the NVDA key and N. Now you might be thinking, what in the world do you mean NVDA key? Remember, it could be caps lock, or it could be insert. It depends on how your NVDA is set up, right? So let me try. Remember, I just checked that caps lock is the NVDA modifier. So if I do caps lock and N, my NVDA menu opens up. Now, if you try caps lock and N and your NVDA menu does not open up, then guess what? Your NVDA key is insert. All right, so that's kind of how that works. You might be thinking, why in the world will they do that? Well, it's to make sure that different keyboard layouts work best with NVDA, and also to give you options, right? I always, doesn't matter what, use caps lock as the NVDA modifier key or JAWS modifier key, because it's just closer to all of the other keys. And sometimes you open a laptop and you're like, I don't even know where the insert key is. So I always use caps lock, okay? Kamran, do we have any questions so far?
No questions, but Michael did comment saying, I'm glad to hear that a lot of the commands for JAWS and NVDA are the same.
Yes, absolutely. Makes our job so much easier, Michael, for sure. Especially when, for example, you teach your student JAWS and then they go out into the world and they realize, oh man, JAWS costs money and not a lot of agencies pay for it. It's very easy to switch to NVDA. So it's really, really awesome that that's a good thing. Honestly, with most of my students, I teach them both and they use both, right? As in, not at the same time, obviously, but as in they go into physics class and they might need to use a feature that JAWS has, and then they moved into English class and they're like, I'm going to move back to NVDA. So they turn off JAWS, turn on NVDA, turn off NVDA, turn on JAWS. They switch back and forth. Okay, so that's what kind of we would want to hope for. All right. So now let's talk about, if you have any questions, we just talked about the NVDA modifier key if you're just starting with us, and why it's important to understand what the NVDA modifier key is. If you have questions on that, throw them in the chat, okay? Throw them in the chat, because it's really important to understand how to set up your NVDA modifier key. Now, if you are like, okay, my NVDA modifier key is insert, but I want it to be caps lock, let's take a look at how to change that, okay? So let's say my NVDA modifier key is insert. I'm going to try to change it to caps lock. Let's try it. So again, we need to start by opening up the NVDA menu, all right? Now, to open the NVDA menu, it's NVDA key plus N, all right? NVDA key plus N. Again, if your NVDA key is insert, it's going to be insert and N. I'm going to turn on speech for this.
Speech mode beeps. Speech mode talk.
I'm going to do insert N so you can hear what it sounds like.
NVDA menu.
All right. Now I'm going to start using just the keyboard. So if you're a screen reader user, menus and lists, always using up and down arrow keys. Okay. So I open the NVDA menu, that should cue you as up. I'm going to use the up and down arrow keys for this. So I'm going to use down arrow key and I'm going to go to preferences.
Preferences submenu P.
All right. I can use enter or I can move right, use the right arrow key to move right.
Settings. S.
And I'm going to want to do settings. Enter.
NVDA settings, general, normal configuration.
Now here, just a little side note, if you want to use the keyboard here, the up and down arrow key uses the sidebar. It makes it goes to the main sections, right? So we have general, voices, speech, Braille, all of those main sections you go to with the up and down arrow key. If you want to get into the main section in here, you're going to tab, okay? So I'm going to show you that now. I'm going to start by, remember, we're changing the NVDA modifier key to caps lock. I'm going to go down to keyboard, all right? Keyboard.
Speech 2 of 13. Braille 3 of 13.
Using up and down arrow keys here.
Vision 4 of 13. Keyboard 5 of 13.
Awesome. And then again, move into our main area with tab.
Keyboard property page. Keyboard layout. Combo box desktop collapsed alt.
All right, we're going to keep going, tab.
Select NVDA modifier keys list.
And then here's our select NVDA modifier keys. This is where you can make caps lock. If you didn't on the welcome dialog box, you can make caps lock the NVDA modifier. Okay, you can check these with your mouse, or you can use space to check. Make sure that all of them, to make it easier on yourself, all of them should be checked. So caps lock, numpad insert, and insert can all be checked. having all of them checked doesn't hurt anything. Just have it, just do it so that it's easier for you. Okay, cool. If you have any questions on that, throw it in the chat. Kamran, we still good? No questions?
No questions yet.
All right, awesome. All right, so sweet. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to show you a couple of settings that I have set on my NVDA that make it a little bit easier for us to, number one, as professionals, see what's going on. And if you are doing remote learning, makes remote learning a lot easier. So let's take a look at that. The first thing is I want to show you, vision. So in these main sections, I'm going to go to vision.
Categories, list, vision 4 of 30.
And you see how you have this enable highlighting here,
Vision property page.
right? The way that I just unchecked enable highlighting, and this is usually when you download NVDA, how you see NVDA. It's just kind of bland, but if I enable highlighting,
Checked.
you see how that big blue box comes up. I always have my enable highlighting on personally so that I can do IT lives and people understand where I am on the screen. But if you're new to NVDA and you want to know where your student is and what's going on their screen, this enable highlighting is so important, so helpful. So please go to vision. Again, we're in preferences, settings, and vision. This is enable highlighting, okay? And you can control what is highlighted and whatever. Just make sure they're all checked. It just makes it easier, okay? So enable highlighting is like my number one hack. If you're a TVI or you are you have clients with visual impairments and you're trying to teach them NVDA, enable highlighting is a lifesaver, absolutely. All right. So that's the first thing. The second thing, I'm going to jump around here. I'm going to say OK.
OK button. Application. Desktop
The
list.
second thing is I want to show you the Braille viewer. All right. The Braille viewer is something that if you have a Braille display connected to NVDA, which I definitely recommend for our Braille readers, if you have a Braille display connected to NVDA, the Braille viewer will show you exactly what is going on that Braille display. Now, this is great for COVID, right? Because then we don't have to be right on top of our student to understand what's going on. We can kind of take a step back and observe that 6 feet, right? Or 3 feet or whatever your school district says. And we don't necessarily have to be moving their hands. We can just see on the screen what's going on in the Braille display. Now I'm going to show you how to do that. So first we're going to open up our NVDA menu. Notice that we're always coming back to this NVDA menu. It's where all of your NVDA settings live. If you don't remember, again, how to open this up, it's the NVDA key plus N. Remember, the NVDA key is either caps lock or insert, but since I just checked all of them, it's either. So I'm going to use caps lock and N. Caps lock
NVDA menu.
And instead of going to preferences, I'm going to go to tools. So I'm going to down arrow. Remember, lists and menus is always up and down arrow. Down arrow to tools.
Preferences submenu P. Tools submenu T.
And I'm going to right arrow to get into that tools menu. You can also use your mouse here.
Tools menu, speech view, view log V.
And now I can go to Braille viewer. I can use up and down arrow keys, or I can just do my mouse. All right, so let me
speech viewer, Braille viewer B, application, content calendar.
Awesome. Now take a look at, on my screen, the Braille viewer has just appeared. This is awesome. Now in your Braille viewer, you can always check that says show Braille viewer when NVDA starts. That's always awesome. Start Braille view on NVDA startup, so that anytime that your student is using NVDA, that Braille viewer is always up. That's really, really important. And you can see kind of what my cursor is on, right? So let me do a couple of things here just to show you what the Braille viewer can do. If I'm going to start and I'm going to, let's say I go to Google Chrome.
Start window, search window. Google Chrome, app 1 of 1 level.
You see how that Braille viewer is following exactly what should be showing up on a Braille display if I had one connected. I don't have one connected now, but if I had a Braille display connected, that would be what the Braille display would be saying. That's what the NVDA is sending to the Braille display, right? So it's really awesome. You can check if it's contracted. You can check if it's uncontracted. You can check if the student says, hey, there's a mistake here. You can check that. And it really is just a great tool for remote learning, for in-person learning, something that every TVI should have.
Sign in required window. Sign in button. Slack content calendar eye.t for new item.
For some reason, my Microsoft account got signed out. I have no idea. So something that you should have in your toolbox, right? For reference, both of these settings, the visual, the highlighter, and the Braille viewer are settings in JAWS that I can show you as well if people are interested. If you are interested in that, put it in the chat so it can cue me at as we're wrapping up to show you that in JAWS. All right, so these are both things that you can start in JAWS as well. All right. Now with my Braille viewer up, I want to go back to, let me make sure I'm following everything that I thought I was going to follow. So let me go back to another tool that we can use for this time our low vision or our dual media students. A lot of times we think of screen readers as if you read Braille, you should be using a screen reader. And if you are using a screen reader, you should read Braille. And nobody else needs to learn a screen reader. And sometimes I think about that and I'm like, I question that, right? The reason I question that is because if you don't know anything about me, I also have low vision. And even during this presentation, I am using the screen reader because I can't see my screen when it's not zoomed in. So this is something that I'm thinking about, like if I was a high schooler and I was low vision, which I was, and I needed to read a bunch of pages for homework. I needed to read a textbook book for homework. If I knew how to use a screen reader, I would just turn on the screen reader and listen to it, right? Because reading took a lot of energy off of my eyes, right? Now, does that mean that I am going to be a full-fledged NVDA user and never have it off? No, of course not. But it can be a tool in my toolbox, even if I'm low vision. Even if I can drive a car, I can still use NVDA as a tool. It's not just limited to our Braille users, right? So let me show you one of the tools that NVDA has included for our visual users that have low vision that are dual media, okay? So I'm going to go to NVDA menu.
NVDA menu.
And this time I'm going to go to preferences and settings. Same thing, same way that we changed the keyboard, the NVDA key, and the highlighter, okay? So preferences.
Preferences submenu P.
Go over to settings.
Settings. S.
And I'm going to press enter on settings.
NVDA settings.
And on this time, you can go down to mouse.
Speech 2 of 13. Braille 3 of 13.
Remember, up and down arrow keys on these main sections.
Vision 4 of 13. Keyboard 5 of 13. Mouse 6 of 13.
There's mouse. And I'm going to tab into this main content area.
Mouse property page. Report mouse shape changes checkbox not checked Alt plus S.
And I'm going to go to enable mouse hover. I think that's what it says. Let's see what it says.
Enable mouse tracking checkbox not checked Alt.
Mouse tracking. Now, when I enable mouse tracking, I'm not going to do it yet, but it's going to read anything that is under my mouse. So instead of navigating with the keyboard, I can then go to something on my screen and it will read in my headphones to you guys what is under my mouse. That's great for low vision, people with low vision like myself, because I can see what's on the screen, but I might not know what it says. All right, let me show you that now.
Space.
So I'm going to check it. I'm going to press OK.
OK. Slack content calendar
All right.
List. Desk.
And now I'm going to go over to my desktop icons and see what they say.
List item. Teamwork desktop. List item. Cisco WebEx. List item. Ring Central.
And if I'm looking for a particular app or I'm not sure about something that's on my desktop, I can use this mouse hover anywhere on the operating system, anywhere on the internet, anywhere in a document, and it will read exactly what's under my cursor. So even if you're not teaching your student keyboard commands, Braille displays, all of that stuff, you can still say, hey, we're going to download NVDA. I'm going to show you something cool. You don't have to turn it on if you don't need it, right? And even just opening that door and creating that opportunity for a student in the future, they might go to college and they might have a job and they might be struggling to read something. And they're like, oh, what was that one thing that my TVI or my VRT told me? It was called NV something. And maybe it'll prompt them to download and install it themselves and have that tool for the future, even if they don't use it. So just to open it up, NVDA is not just for Braille users, and this feature is a great example of that. Again, this feature also is available in JAWS and VoiceOver and Chromebox. So if you are interested in a feature like that, look it up on Google if you're using a different screen reader, or put it in the chat. I also have all these screen readers available to us today. So, all right, let me turn off my mouse hover just to make sure that we're not hovering over everything. So let me go to
NVDA menu,
preferences,
settings, NVDA settings, general, combo,
We're gonna go to
list
mouse,
mouse 6, checkbox, mouse
uncheck.
button, up categories,
All right. Kamran, do we have any questions in the chat? Any comments, anything that people are requesting?
We do. This question is from Michael, and they ask, does enable highlighting help the instructor or the student when doing virtual instruction, or both?
That's a great question, Michael. I would say it depends on your student, right? So if you're working with a Braille reader, then it depends on how much vision they have. If highlighting is helpful to them, that's awesome. But mainly what I'm thinking of is for the instructor to be comfortable seeing what is going on the screen so that you can kind of coach your student through it. For me, I like highlighting if I was using NVDA so that I know exactly where NVDA is reading, because I can't necessarily see the system caret, the little gray outline on the screen. If you're using NVDA with a dual media or low vision student, highlighting would be awesome. Absolutely. I think what NV Access intended was to put that there for users. However, as from the perspective of a vision professional in a pandemic doing virtual instruction, I would say enable highlighting has been super useful as an instructor so that I can very quickly, as a low vision instructor too, so I can very quickly look at the screen and be like, oh, they're on mouse, right? That's where their cursor is, that's where they are. So that I can see, oh, they're almost to where they need to be, or, oh, they skipped it. You might need to go back. So I can help coach my student through something. So great question, Michael. I love it. Anything else, Kamran? Anything else that came up?
Nothing else for now.
All right, awesome. Sweet. So now let's kind of go in the other direction. We started talking about our dual media users. Now let's kind of transition to Braille settings and Braille displays, right? If you're just joining us with IT Live, put your questions in the chat. We will totally get to them as we go through. Today we're setting up NVDA and we're making sure that our settings are all set for when our student starts instruction, okay? But again, all screen readers, JAWS, NVDA, Chromebox, VoiceOver, they're so much more similar than you would think. So if you are interested in another screen reader, ask the question in the chat. We can totally look at other screen readers beyond NVDA today if you all want, okay? So let's take a look at our Braille settings now. A lot of people wonder, I get a lot of questions, I should say, about what's the best Braille display for a student, or sometimes they ask, what my student knows a Focus 40, what's the best screen reader for that? Or my student knows a HumanWare Brailliant, and we're struggling with some commands. And the things that I tell people about Braille displays are awesome, great devices for Braille readers. However, to think about them not as separate devices, but rather a display, right? It's a Braille display. Just like your monitor, your computer monitor that you have in front of you, it's not something that you necessarily have to learn to use. It's just projecting whatever screen reader you're using, whatever the screen reader that they are using is telling it, right? So if you ask me, what's the best monitor you use for an HP computer? I'd be like, HP? I don't know. Because the settings of the monitor are not necessarily super important to what the screen reader is telling you. Okay. Now, the companies that sell those Braille displays will tell you something different, right? And that's where we get from IT. We don't sell any products beyond training. I will tell you the truth. They will tell you you need the Focus 40 because it can do all these different things and it has all these features and twists and gadgets and these things and that things. And to be honest, I'm a little skeptical, right? And this is, again, grain of salt, my opinion. So other people might have other opinions. If you do have another opinion, please let us know in the chat because I would love to.
Mouse 6 of 13.
I would love to. Let me turn off the speech.
Speech mode off.
I would love to hear other opinions on this. But from my opinion, I think that if you start to learn a specific display, if you were saying, I have a Focus 40 in front of me, or I have a HumanWare Brailliant in front of me, and I only know how to interact with the computer through that HumanWare Brailliant, that the way that the Brailliant is made is not standardized, right? HumanWare creates these keyboard commands that are not super intuitive, and they're not standardized. They're not on a QWERTY keyboard. All of the commands that screen readers use on a QWERTY keyboard are standardized. They have been around for years and they are not going anywhere, right? So when you say, what type of Braille display do I need? Don't worry about it. Get the Braille display that you can get, right? That's what I would say. Get the Braille display that you can get. Honestly, when they came out with the Mantis Q40 from APH, I was like, yes, this is exactly what we need. Why? Because it has a QWERTY keyboard, because it has that standardized thing, right? It's not a Perkins keyboard, it's a QWERTY keyboard. Now, that being said, if your student likes typing on a Perkins keyboard, that's awesome. Get them a HumanWare Brailliant, get them a Focus 40. Not saying that those products aren't good, they are. But what I am saying is make sure that you learn the screen reader, not necessarily to learn the display. All right, so it's kind of a nuanced point there. But let us know your comments, let us know your questions. I would love to hear them. And we'll come back to the chat in a second to see what people say. All right, so now all that being said, let's talk about Braille settings. Okay, now it's important for our Braille users, if they're learning a screen reader, to have a Braille display in front of them, because Braille displays with screen readers are very powerful. It's really important to use a Braille display with a screen reader, because if a student is in a classroom or they're at a job and somebody is trying to talk to them, it's hard to use a screen reader while the screen reader is talking and you're trying to listen to somebody else. I've also heard a lot about making sure when you're using a Braille display, a lot of users have told me that you feel more connected to the content when the Braille is under your fingertips, right? Especially if you're editing documents, if you're trying to figure out what something says, it's easier to feel it under your fingertips and see it exactly there, instead of trying to navigate through it and just listening to it through headphones. Now, with NVDA, the beauty of NVDA is most Braille displays, most common Braille displays, when you plug them in, NVDA is like, got it, awesome, I have it, right? And it connects automatically, right? Most Braille displays, I haven't had an instance where I've plugged in a modern Braille display and NVDA hasn't recognized it, which is awesome, right? Because if you're familiar with JAWS, JAWS always has an issue with Braille displays. You have to download the driver, then you have to tell JAWS which Braille display. You have to choose from this long list of Braille displays, which one is it, right? And sometimes even then, the Braille display doesn't load. So the beauty of NVDA is NVDA usually gets Braille displays just like that, okay? The one thing that you do have to make sure, though, is let's go to Braille settings and I'll show you. So I'm gonna, in the settings menu, so remember NVDA menu, preferences, settings, you're gonna go to Braille, all right? Let me turn my speech on.
Speech mode talk. Keyboard 5 of 13, Vision 4 of 13, Braille 3 of 13.
All right. And the one thing you would need to make sure is that your Braille display is set to automatic. So I'm going to tab here.
Braille property page, Braille display grouping, edit read only multi-line automatic.
All right. If that's set to automatic, NVDA should automatically recognize your Braille display. That's set as default. Now, if you have a problem with a certain Braille display, what I would recommend is going to the manufacturer's website, downloading the Windows driver for it, right? And then going here to change and choosing that Braille display specifically. Just make sure that if you try to connect another Braille display, you have to change it back to automatic, okay? The other thing to keep in mind about Braille displays is you want to make sure that the Braille code that you're using is the correct code. Right here, you can see, for example, that I'm on Unified English Braille grade 2. If your student is like in first grade, you probably want to have that in as grade 1, right? Also, if your student is reading certain types of material, it might need to be in computer Braille, all right? If you want more information about which code, we did a really great webinar last year for the Maryland Braille Challenge. We can post that link in the description of this video after it. after it airs. I'll find it and we'll post it in there. But just making sure that you change the grade based on what you need. Most of the time, you're going to want UEB grade 2, right? Grade 2 being contracted. So let me show you how to do that. I'm just going to tab.
Output table, combo.
Remember, output is what the Braille display reads, what the screen reader is giving to the Braille display to put on the display. You can see the output as the Braille viewer. So my output is up here in the Braille viewer. If I change that to grade 1,
Unified English Braille Code grade 1.
and click apply, notice how the Braille changes. Take a look at it now. It's all contracted. If I press
Categories,
apply,
list. Braille property page.
now it's all uncontracted. So that's switching from grade 2 to grade 1. And then, of course, input is if you are using a Braille keyboard, a Perkins keyboard on a Braille display. Grade 2 is making sure that if you're writing contractions, the screen reader will recognize them, right? So it's either UEB grade 1, UEB grade 2, or computer Braille, right? And let's see, it would be under E. You can use first letter navigation here. That means I can type an E and it should go through all of the E's.
E, English, U.K, E, English, U.K, E, English, E, English, U.S. 6. Computer Braille.
You see 6. Computer Braille or 8. Computer Braille. That's if you're reading something that's already translated. As in, the computer has already done the translation. You're looking at a piece of Braille. You're looking at a BRF. You're looking at Desmos has already translated Braille. Something that is already translated. If you're looking at plain text, like most of the computer, you're going to want UEB grade 2. Let me switch it back here. I'm going to use first letter navigation using U for unified.
U, Ukrainian Ukrainian grade U, Unified English Braille Code grade 1, U, Unified English Braille Code grade 2.
And I'm going to go ahead and apply that.
Categories, list,
Right.
Braille 3 of 13.
Kamran, any questions so far? Any comments?
No more questions as of yet.
All right, awesome. The last kind of thing that I wanted to talk about was this idea of creating a portable copy of NVDA. Now, as I move on to this last topic, I'll say this is kind of your last chance. Make sure that if there is something that you are still wondering, if you're thinking to yourself, okay, I get all of this, but, and then there's another thing, put it in the chat. This is kind of where, as we wrap up, I want to make sure we get all of our questions, and we are totally fine with staying on here longer than our hour block. So feel free to ask those tough questions. We will make sure to get them answered, okay? But let's talk about creating a portable copy. One of the things that NVDA does that is awesome that JAWS does not do is it allows us to create what's called a portable copy of NVDA. Now, if you downloaded and installed NVDA, you'll notice that when you do download and install NVDA, it asks you can install NVDA on this computer, or you can create a portable copy. Now, what is a portable copy? A portable copy is you can take a USB flash drive, and I'm going to show you mine right here. You see, I've just unplugged it, just like this. All right, I have this one on my keys, and you can install a whole copy of NVDA on this flash drive instead of on the computer. Now, why is that important? Well, because then if I carry around this flash drive, this can be my screen reader. I can walk up to a computer that I've never sat at before, ask somebody, hey, can you turn on this thing, right? Because you won't have a screen reader. And then you have a full-fledged screen reader right on this flash drive. It's super, super cool. I'm going to show you that now. Of course, I do have NVDA on this computer, so I will be running a portable copy anyway. I'm going to take this section this time to show you how to turn off NVDA. So I'm going to go ahead and press escape here.
Slack content.
And I'm going to turn off NVDA with NVDA key plus Q for quit.
Exit NVDA dialog.
Remember, NVDA key is caps lock or insert, right? So, it's asking, do you want to exit NVDA? Yes, I do. I'm going to press enter. And now NVDA is off. Now, let's run NVDA off of this little tiny flash drive. Isn't that awesome? Give me a second so I can plug it in. All right, the sound tells me I did that well. course, my headphones got caught, so that's embarrassing. But now let's run NVDA as a portable copy. All right. So the barrier to this, the limitation is, let's say that I don't have NVDA on this computer. And let's say that instead I've never seen this computer before and I am a NVDA user. I'm a screen reader user. The problem is I can't get to the place where I need to open up NVDA because I don't have a screen reader on. So this is where you might need some sighted assistance, but it's only a little bit. The thing that you need to do is go to File Explorer. If you don't know, File Explorer is down here in the bottom taskbar most of the time. If File Explorer is not there, you can also press the Windows key and you can type in File Explorer. All right. And then I'm going to go to my flash drive. Did I pass it? I did. There's my flash drive. And from my flash drive, oh, my light just turned off. Oh. And from my flash drive, we are going to go down to the NVDA application here. Here it is, the little icon, right? Now, when I double click on that, NVDA will start up, all right? You're going to hear that very familiar chime, NVDA starting up. Now, if this is a computer that you're going to use regularly, what you can do is you can create a shortcut, create a desktop shortcut, or you can drag this right onto the desktop, right? Creates a desktop shortcut. And now this NVDA is the NVDA that's not installed on my computer. It's actually the portable copy. So now, once it's on my desktop, I can actually search up NVDA or go to my desktop, Command or Windows D, and click N, and it should go right there. I'm going to use my mouse though. So beautiful.
Welcome to NVDA.
And notice how it brought up that welcome dialog because this is the first time I've opened it up, right? So this is what it's like to create a portable copy of NVDA. You can take that flash drive and bring it to any computer and do that exact same process and have a full-fledged screen reader that you didn't have to download and install on that computer. Okay, Kamran, any questions as we start to wrap up here?
We do. Michael asks, so then to end NVDA, you hit caps lock plus N plus Q?
No, that's a great question. So caps lock and Q, that's the only key command you need. So as
NVDA usage data desktop list.
So I'll do it right now since NVDA is now on. All you need to do is caps lock and Q.
Caps
of course,
lock.
This version doesn't have caps lock as the NVDA key. So it's NVDA and Q. So
Exit NVDA dial.
You can do
desktop.
You can do insert an N or caps lock an N.
NVDA menu.
You can open up the NVDA menu and go all the way down to exit. That's fine too. But you can also just use that shortcut of caps lock Q or NVDA Q. Okay.
Desktop
Great
list.
question.
Exit NV desktop list.
Any more questions, Kamran?
No other questions.
No other questions. All right. Before we wrap up today, again, last chance to put questions in the chat about NVDA, about JAWS, anything that you're wondering. But before we wrap up today, I do want to show you guys, again, if you're interested in changing your view of screen readers and getting started using a screen reader like NVDA, like JAWS, teaching your students NVDA or JAWS, sign up for our January strategy. Again, you're going to get an email in your inbox with all of the posts that we'll have in January. All of them are dedicated to bridging that gap from I want to learn a screen or I want to teach a screen reader to I'm ready to teach a screen reader, right? It's all about setup. It's all about Braille displays. It's all about purchasing. It's all about understanding these basic functions of NVDA, like the NVDA key. So if you're interested in this content, sign up. Kamran, I'll throw that link in the chat one more time, and you'll get that first email once you sign up. It's automatic. So you sign up, and then you'll get that first email of this week. You'll get your next email on Monday of next week, okay? The last thing that I want to show you, again, if you haven't heard of us or if you're new to IT, check out our website. Kamran will throw that in the chat as well. Our website is itvision.com. That's EYETVISION.com. We have a ton of free resources. One of them is our screen reader tidbits emails. If you do sign up for our email list in January, you'll get all of those screen reader tidbits emails. These are emails that we write every week, covering a really basic skill in screen reader instruction. The other thing that we have is a free online mini course for instructors to kind of get you started instructing on screen readers. So past the point of, okay, now I have a screen reader on my computer, what do I do next? What do I teach my learners? So we kind of do that. And then if you're really gung-ho for this, we have a full screen reader curriculum that goes over how to teach your student screen reader on the internet. That comes with a student edition, there's an instructor edition. The instructor edition comes with lesson plans, a screen reader lesson plan template. We also have data sheets, tests, quizzes, instructional videos, and all of the concepts in there. So if you're interested in that, definitely go to our website. And then finally, the last thing is if you are interested in live training or you just have a question, right? You can always request a consultation. Our consultations are 15 minutes and they're free. And you'll have a direct one-on-one consultation with me. And we'll kind of go through what you're struggling with, what are the things that we can help you with at IT. And again, it's totally free to do that consultation. So if you are interested in this content, take a look at our website, see what we have available. We really appreciate you all coming to this IT Live session and being a part of our AT for VI professionals group. You guys are really, really supportive of all the content that we do, and keep asking us questions because it gives us new ideas as to what content we're going to have. All right. So as we wrap up, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. And we'll see you all at the next event.